bad guys. We are the aggressors in this current war. And if you look at the history of the 20th century, every major war was ultimately lost by the country that started it. So guess where that sets us up? I'm not surprised our soldiers are committing suicide in such numbers. They know they're the bad guys.
Well, it's amazing to see this unfolding. And on top of that, the media is playing a game here when they act like they didn't know it was torture, and they have a debate about whether it's torture or not, or whether torture was ordered. We have all the White House memos. But before we had the orders, and before we found out Pelosi was in on it, and that she tried to lie about that, I remember in the 3 or 4 months after 9/11, Washington Post articles that are in my film Road to Tyranny, where they thought they had the public where they wanted them with 90+% approval rating, so they tried to sell pure evil at that point. And it said detainees' children being used to get answers. And then it said, we're, quote, putting pressure, and the article went on to say, torture of children in front of their parents to get answers. And so, and I'll never forget being out in Hollywood, because I was going on a national TV show out there. And I'll never forget being in a hotel room watching a press conference with Rumsfeld bragging how they were torturing. Why doesn't the media go get all those clips of him saying that and all those articles, and then there's no more debate, we arrest these people? Because the whole government, both parties are involved. We'll talk to Mike Rivero and take your phone calls on the other side of this long segment that's coming up. His website's whatreallyhappened.com. Our sites are infowars.com. He rules. Well, now Reuters reports poll finds Irish support EU's Libson Treaty rises. They're going to try to have another vote. And they did this last time, saying it was going to win last year in Ireland, and then it lost. So how do you deal with this level of deception? And where is all this going?
Well, the good news is, because these deceptions are being repeatedly exposed and people are seeing this incredible disconnect between what the corporate media is saying and the reality on the ground. And I would cite as a local example some of these incredibly bogus polls, very obviously bogus polls we're seeing in the corporate media about how Americans want Guantanamo kept open and they don't want investigations into torture. I mean, the first rule of propaganda is, for it to work, it's got to be believable. And our corporate media has gone so far past that line right now, where people, and this is why they're losing audience and why people are coming over to the Alex Jones show and the What Really Happened show, and they're coming to the blogosphere, because the propaganda has reached an unbelievable level. Now, getting back to the situation about the economy, I think a big reason the people of the world are rejecting this globalism and these unions is for two reasons. One, they know it's not for their benefit. It's for the benefit of the banks, so they can have a bigger pile of money that they can siphon off of. And at bottom line, when you talk about a global governance, that's what Alexander the Great wanted. That's what Napoleon wanted. That's what Hitler wanted. And people understand that global governance is not about wise management of the globe. It's about some individual or some small group standing up on top of a monument built to their own glory and screaming, I am in control of it all. Am I not really cool? And I think we've kind of had enough of that sort of situation. And as I said before, the current economic downturn on the entire planet is because of globalism, and most people are smart enough to realize more globalism is not going to fix it. Now, interestingly enough, we brought up a concept at my own show yesterday, and I've been getting a ton of email about it, both pro and con, and it has to do with a little theory in international law called an odious debt. And what that is, this basically means that when a government ceases to operate, the debts incurred that were not for the benefit of the people are construed to be personal debts of the government officials themselves, and the people don't have to pay them back. The U.S. used this to get Cuba off the hook for debts run up by the Spanish occupation. Mexico used this principle to repudiate the debts run up by the Emperor Maximilian. Basically, what it means is that at some point in the future, if the government of the United States should collapse the way the USSR did, all of this money spent on wars of aggression, all these debts run up for the bailouts, all the money borrowed for walls and security and surveillance and all of this other stuff that didn't really improve the lot of the common people, we the people are not going to be held liable for that debt anymore.
Well, that's what I was going to get to next, and I want you to continue with the punchline here, with the key. But I mean, that is so central. Not just odious debt, fraudulent debt. A contract that's fraudulent, a contract that's carried out through deception is null and void. And as a free human being, I don't own I don't own and I don't owe $500,000 to foreign offshore banks. A, I don't have it. B, it was set up fraudulently. I mean, we even pay taxes to the offshore banks to give them the money, and then we pay interest on the money we pay taxes to give them. This is the greatest Ponzi scheme fraud. They want to carry their Ponzi scheme through to the next level through fraud. So it is fraudulent, and that's why China and Russia and Europe and Japan are saying, can you guys pay this back? Because they know they can do the math. We've gone from the average American owning, more money and more assets than they did debts to being a total debtor nation in 2007. And at the worst debtor level we've been in our history, the previous record of a sum debtor nation was in late 1933. And so we physically can't pay it back. It's fraudulent. The world knows that we all owe over $500,000, and it's now going hyperbolic. It's going from a couple $100,000 a year ago to $500,000 now, and accelerating towards $1 million in debt per American within 2 years, the Wall Street Journal reports. And no police state is going to be able to extract this out of the slaves. The country is imploding. The illegal aliens are bankrupting everything in the Southwest because they're in the social welfare net because they're not paid enough to live. I mean, this is all coming to a head. So where do you see all this going, Mike Rivero?
Well, there's a fundamental principle about the debt-based currency system that we find at the heart of the Federal Reserve, and that is that the instant it goes into operation, more money is owed to the banks than is actually physically in existence. We talk about the federal government being $65 trillion in debt. Most of that is debt of money that is fictional. It never really existed in the first place. It is simply notes in a ledger that the interest is accruing over time. And so the money doesn't exist, and unless we go out and conquer other countries, we're never going to come up with it, and we have to collapse. The problem with bringing a global bank into line with the same debt-based currency where all money is borrowed from a central bank, when it gets to the point of collapse, there are no other places to go for money. So a global debt-based Federal Reserve-style bank inevitably will plunge the entire world into an incredible depression where we're going to wind up eating each other. And this is why it must be avoided at all costs.
I agree with you. Let's take some calls from Mike Rivero, joining us from Hawaii via video cam right now, simulcasting at prisonplanet.tv and at Genesis on the radio. Let's go ahead and talk to Peter in Iraq. Peter, thank you for holding. You're on the air.
Hey, Alex. Jesse Ventura made a great point the other day, and I just wanted to bring it back up. He was saying that, and I know you're all about a bloodless peaceful revolution. And he made a great point about how, I'm too old to re-enlist and take back the military. Well, wouldn't you think that it'd be a great idea to have people enlist in the military who are enlightened, who know what's going on, and then when they give the orders, just be like, sorry, I just work to hold the Constitution, not any executive branch or anybody else.
Yes, I mean, I've said that it's all, I mean, that's a very complex issue, and I want to get Mike Rivero's take on that as well. Look, we know that as the police get more and more corrupt leadership, and as they're told to do more and more things that are unconstitutional, and as the media plays these mind games and legitimizes it all, that the stupid, ignorant, foolish, or wicked people, and there's a mix of all those, will stay in the police forces, the good ones will get out, and then you're left with a bunch of rotten apples. The same thing for the military. As they hire illegal aliens, as they hire criminals, as they kill military investigators, as the corruption gets worse and worse, the good people get out, and it's a race to the bottom. But how can you expect good people to stay in when they're going to be sent on fraudulent missions, when they're going to be stuck in bad situations, where they're going to be given these experimental vaccines and shots? I think it's a good thing that there are a lot of good people in the military. At the same time, I wouldn't wish anybody to join this military that's controlled by offshore banks. I mean, we know that of any Democrat or any Republican, Ron Paul got the most money. I mean, Ron Paul got over 70% of the military contributions until he got out of the race, and then Obama got most of them because he was saying it in the war. So I know the troops are good. That's why they're trying to replace them with Blackwater and illegal aliens and felons. So it's a very complex question. I mean, I can't make that decision. I can't sit here and tell you what I think you should do. I think that's for you to decide. Mike Rivero?
Yeah, absolutely agree.